Hey everyone, how's it going? It's JDosX here and welcome to Mini Tut Monday episode 9, where today I'm going to show you guys how to do 2D motion tracking in After Effects. So what we're going to end up with is basically what you can see on the screen here, and it really does produce quite a good result. So without further ado, let's get started. I'm just going to create a new project. Here we go. So for the first thing you want to do is import your reference footage. So you can hit Control-I on the keyboard and that will bring up the import dialog. This is my footage here. And we're just going to create a new composition by dragging this from the the project resources pane to the new composition button down here. Now, I've recorded about 20 seconds of footage, but to make this a bit faster, I'm just going to trim that down to 7 seconds. There we go. Now, the first thing you want to do when you motion track is you want to change your workspace to a motion tracking workspace, which reveals all the dialogues that you'll need. So to do that, you go to the window button in the top toolbar, workspace, motion tracking, and this brings up all the important dialogues you can see on the right side here. The next thing you want to do is to identify some good tracking points on your video. Now, I picked this particular wall because it has lots of splotches on it, and because they're nice little round dots that are fairly dark, they have a high contrast with respect to the rest of the footage, which creates a great tracking dot. They also have a distinctive pattern around them, which makes it even better. So I'm going to pick a few dots in this scene. I think I'll go for this one on the left here and this one on the right. The next thing you want to do is to create a layer to project the tracking data onto. We're going to use a null object for that, and you can think of this as similar to a gizmo in 3ds Max. So go to Layer, New, Null Object, and it's created it down here. We're going to call it, there we go, we're just going to call it Tracker. So to change the name of a layer, you hit Enter on the keyboard, and Tracker. There we go. Okay, so now to start motion tracking, what you want to do is you want to click the video layer. And after that, you want to go down here and press Track Motion, and this will get the process started. So as you can see, as soon as we did that, a little dot appeared on the screen. This is a tracking point. Now, by default, After Effects will only have it set up to track just position, but we want to do everything. We would like to track 2D position, rotation, and scale. So to do that, we just have to go over here and we have to check the rotation and scale boxes. And now you'll notice we've got 2 tracking points. So what we want to do now with these points is adjust their size and move them over our tracking dots that we've decided on. So like I said before, I've picked this one here and this one over here. So I'm going to take my first tracking dot, I'm just going to drag it, and I'm going to drop it over the point there. There we go. And I'll take this one, and whoop, there we go. And I'm just going to drag it over here and drop it in place. Excellent. Now you may need to zoom in. It's a bit fiddly, so I'm just going to zoom into this dot here. And what these different boxes represent are pretty vital in determining how fast and how accurately the motion track takes place. So the dot in the middle, the smaller box represents the actual object you're tracking, and the larger one represents the area to search for it in the next frame. You really want these boxes to be as small as you can for speed, but you make sure they're not too small, because otherwise the track won't be as accurate and it could lose the plot more easily. So if time is on your side and you don't mind if it could take a few minutes to do the track, make the outside box as large as you can, and make sure you make this small box just pretty much encompassing the object there. And we'll just do that on the second one here. So I'll just drag that out there. That looks pretty good. And that's most of the work done. The next thing we have to do is decide which layer of our footage gets the tracking data applied to it. And as I've said before, the null object is what we want to apply it to. So all we have to do is go down here and go Edit Target. Make sure Tracker is selected and hit OK. That means that once the motion tracking is done, when we apply the tracking data, it will be applied to the tracking null object. After that, you just want to check a few other things to make sure your motion source is correct. That's the video layer. And the track type should be transform in our case, but After Effects does have a whole heap of other motions, and feel free to explore them. You can do some really powerful stuff. So now that that's done, we have these analyze controls here. These are basically similar to video playback controls. This one means analyze 1 frame backwards. This is basically analyzing backwards, and it will continue to analyze until the start of the footage. This one is analyze forwards until you hit the end of the footage, and this is analyze forwards by 1 frame. So what I'm going to do is hit analyze forwards, I'm going to go away, come back, and we'll see what it looks like at the end. Welcome back everybody. As you can see, my motion track is finished, and if we scrub along the timeline, we'll see that our tracking dots, for the most part, follow our scene pretty well. However, just watch the tracking dot on the left. As you can see, it lost the plot somewhere there. Now, this is pretty common, it can easily happen. It usually happens when the scene moves too quickly and all of a sudden After Effects can't figure out what's going on anymore. So it's pretty easy to fix, luckily. So what we're going to do is we're just going to scrub forwards until we hit the last point where the tracker is doing its job properly. Now, we're going to skip ahead 1 frame by hitting page down, and as you can see, what's happened is the footage has just gotten a bit blurry and it's hard for After Effects to make out exactly what's going on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom in on this tracking dot here. There we go, just go over here, and we're going to make our we're just going to make our tracking point a bit larger. There we go, and we'll see if this works. So now what we do is we hit analyze forwards again, and as you can see, it's now picked it up. So it's just, there's a lot of trial and error, especially with very jittery scenes. So as a general rule, you want to make both these boxes as large as possible, but the computations will take a lot longer. But sometimes, as you can see here, the situation warrants it. Also, something else to note is that the larger the boxes are, the more stable your track will be. So I'm just going to go ahead and manually analyze forwards until I get a good result, and then I'll just press play again to automatically finish the track. I think this is going to play nicely with me now, so I'm just going to analyze forwards and we'll see what happens at the end. There we go. Welcome back once again everybody. Now that I've fixed that little tracking mishap that I had before, if we scrub through the timeline now, you can see that both tracking points follow the scene really well. So that's pretty good. So now that our tracking's done, we need to apply it to an object. Now, what we're going to do is we're just going to apply it to the null object which we created earlier. So since we've already selected our null object in Edit Target, all we have to do is hit Apply, and that will take us into this little dialog here where we can pick what dimensions we want to track. So we're going to do, we've done a 2D track across the whole scene, so we're going to pick X and Y, but you can allow it to only track the horizontal or vertical movement using these options here. So now that that's done, it's taken us back into the scene and it's selected our tracker object and it's given it a path, as you can see here. If we scrub across the timeline, you'll see the tracker follows the wall pretty much as if it was glued to it, which is exactly what we wanted. Now, you may be wondering why we picked a null object to track onto instead of creating our text or whatever and then tracking using that. The reason for that is because motion tracking gives our objects an absolute position, meaning that we can't move it relative to our background video without stuffing up our tracking. So instead what we do is we create a null object to apply the data to, and then we parent other objects on top of it, which allows us to effectively apply this tracking data across multiple objects without doing the copy and pasting and applying of data multiple times. So now that the data's on our tracker, we're going to go ahead and create our text. So we're just going to turn our workspace back to normal now. Just go Window, Workspace, Standard. This brings us back to the good old familiar After Effects workspace, and we'll go Layer, New Text, and then we'll type something out and position it however you want. And this doesn't just apply to text, I'm just using text to demonstrate it, but it works with anything. You can motion track to other videos, text, images, audio, anything you can compose in After Effects you can track to. So now that that's done, we're going to parent our text layer to the tracker, and the way you do that is you pick the little pick whip here under parent, and when you drag it out, as you can see, it brings up this rope, and then you're just going to want to mouse it over the tracker layer and let go. And as you can see, as we scrub the timeline back and forth now, our text is safely tracked over the top of our video. Here we go, and we'll just play it back and we'll see what it looks like. There we go. So as you can see, that's a pretty good result, and it didn't take much effort at all. Now, if you track in the in your own experience and you find that sometimes scenes are a bit jittery, it comes down to manipulating the tracking points. So sometimes for speed, you might be able to make the points fairly small. I'm talking about not the tracking points in the video, but the actual boxes which After Effects pops up, which you can pick with. So if you end up with a jittery track, you can always just make those boxes larger or smaller, and they should give you a better result the larger the boxes are. But just keep in mind that the larger your tracking points are that After Effects gives you, the slower it's going to do the job. So thank you very much for watching. I hope this has helped, and make sure you tune in next week, because next week I'm going to show you guys how to do 2D motion tracking where there are no reference points in your footage. Stay tuned.